Good morning. Blimey, that's a good start. Good morning. How the devil are you all doing this fine day? Me, freaking that it's Friday. First week back after a long break has really taken its toll. I was also ill yesterday afternoon. And I'm not feeling great now, actually. So hopefully I'll make it through the show. I'm off to Worthing tomorrow to tackle stage 2 of clearing my parents' home. So there'll be no Saturday social tomorrow. But we do have one planned for Saturday, the 28th of January. So if you're likely to be free that day, please be sure to mark that in your diary. And while you have your diary to hand, don't forget that we will be live at 7 p.m. on Wednesday next week as I break out my crystal ball and attempt to predict where the industry might go over the next 12 months. As you all know, making predictions at any time is always fraught with danger. But given all that's going on in the sector at present, even looking a week ahead is pretty challenging. But I'm going to give it a go anyway. We'll see where the conversation takes us. Don't forget, that is Wednesday, the 18th of January at 7 p.m. Now, without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. It is Friday the 13th of January. Not that I want to spook anyone. And as that remarkably persistent guy just said, welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, car park collapses. Yet another reason to question the viability of electric vehicles. We're getting salty with some Liebherr wheel loaders. We're blasting chimneys in Slovakia. And we're out on site with a smart new Komatsu mini excavator as well. Plus, it may have a price tag of $1 trillion. But work is pressing ahead on the Saudi Arabian linear megacity, known simply as the Line. We've got some footage to show you of that. We'll get to all of that in just a second. But first, let's see who among the rich and the shameless will be celebrating a birthday on this day of days. Happy birthday! And it's many happy returns to actors Ian Hendry and Rip Taylor, and also to William B. Davis, who was the smoking man from The X-Files. Anyone remembers The X-Files? Happy birthday also to author Jay McInerney, Pretenders bassist Malcolm Foster, golfer Mark O'Meara, and actor Patrick Dempsey, to snooker legend Stephen Hendry, Baywatch actress Nicole Eggert and Ruth Wilson, actresses rather, Nicole Eggert and Ruth Wilson, and to actors Orlando Bloom and Liam Hemsworth. But far more importantly, today marks the birthday of a former nutty boy, Mr. Graham McPherson, better known to the world simply as Suggs from Madness. Many happy returns to them, one and all. Sadly, we must also say a fond farewell to the daughter of the king, Lisa Marie Presley. I'm a huge Elvis fan, as many of you already know. Many years ago, I actually took a trip to Elvis's house, Graceland, over in Memphis. While I was there, I went on the private aircraft that Elvis had named after his only child, the Lisa Marie. It didn't go anywhere, I hasten to add, but I've been on it. 54 years old, no age at all, although she did manage to live a full 12 years more than her father managed. Sad day, sad day. I hate to say we told you so, but, well, we told you so. A year ago, together with Mike Keogh of C&D Consultants and Amicus Insurance, I hosted a live seminar on the subject of car park demolition. During that session, Mike Keogh pointed out that many of the nation's car parks were designed and built immediately after the Second World War, around 20 years before the UK had any real form of building regulations. They were built basically to attract people into city centres, and very successful they were too. The problem is that a good many of those car parks are still in use. The even bigger problem is that those car parks were not designed for the vehicles of today. Most worrying of all, they are woefully inadequate for the new generation of electric vehicles. According to the British Parking Association, most of the UK's 6,000 multi-storey car parks were built to guidelines based on the weight of previous generations of vehicles that were that were significantly lighter. According to structural engineer Chris Wapples, the Mark III Cortina was the benchmark used in the design of many of the UK's multi-storey car parks and underground parking garages. A Cortina, weighed around 1.4 tons, while an electric car, like the Tesla Model 3, weighs 2.2 tons. That's a 50% increase in vehicle weight. Meanwhile, I know there's not many of them about, but a US-built Hummer electric weighs more than 4 tons. That's the equivalent to 3 Mark III Cortinas. The Hummer's battery pack alone weighs more than a Ford Fiesta. And according to British Parking Association, that additional weight could cause catastrophic damage or even collapse. Chris Wapples says the increasing risk to infrastructure, such as car parks and bridges, is not being recognised. When you see the weights of the vehicles coming out of the factories, you start to wonder if the existing standards are adequate, he says. Meanwhile, the Institute of Structural Engineers is expected to update its design recommendations for multi-storey and underground parking garages later this month to recommend larger parking bays and an ability to withstand higher loads. However, this only pertains to new buildings, and reinforcing existing car parks can prove prohibitively expensive. So, could that mean more car park demolition work? Possibly. If it does, we would strongly urge you to revisit Mike Keogh's seminar. You'll find a link to that in the chat in just a second. Now, I know that the Breakfast Show audience likes its irony with a side order of sarcasm. So, how's this? As I said at the beginning of this item, the majority of these multi-storey car parks are located in city centres, and they might need to be demolished because their integrity has been undermined by the additional weight of electric vehicles. In an ideal world, you would want to carry out that demolition as quietly as possible with the absolute minimum of emissions. Surely a role for an electric excavator or two. An electric excavator with a big, heavy battery pack. Explosive demolition. It's like London buses. You wait an age, then 2 arrive at once. Yesterday we brought you the latest outing of CDI over in the States. Today we're a little closer to home. A little bit. We're in Slovakia. Could be wrong, but I think that might be the first time we've ever featured a Slovakian project here on the Breakfast Show. Sure, it won't be the last. Yesterday, we were all watching a Komatsu dozer in action. Today, we're switching things up a bit, or down a bit, depending how you look at it, to bring you a Komatsu PC20R-5 in action. Yeah, Komatsu really do make exceedingly good mini excavators.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
We all know how abrasive salt can be on machines and vehicles, how it can corrode and eat away at steel and rubber. So imagine what these Liebherr X-Power wheel loaders go through and all the effort that it takes to keep them running in this environment.
Ben Duygu Mutlu, Mutlu Can Tuz'un yönetim kurulu üyesiyim. Aynı zamanda endüstri mühendisiyim. Mutlu Can Tuz olarak 2005 yılından bu yana Tuz Gölü Kayacık Tuzlası'nda üretim yapmaktayız. Yaklaşık 200 çalışanımızla üretim alanımızda 1,5 milyon ton ham tuz üretmekteyiz. Mutlu Can Tuz olarak Türkiye'nin tuz ihtiyacının önemli bir kısmını karşılamaktayız ve dünyada 30'dan fazla ülkeye de ihracat yapıyoruz. Prosesin ilk aşamasında pompalar yardımıyla havuzlara su dağıtımı yapıyoruz. Hava koşullarına göre tuzlu su yeterli ısıya ulaşıp buharlaşmaya başlayınca zeminde yaklaşık 8 ila 12 santim aralığında bir tuz tabakası oluşuyor. Oluşan tuz tabakası zeminden kazınarak araçlara yüklenerek stok alanına taşınıyor. Tuz üretim aşamalarında elbette bir takım zorluklar yaşıyoruz. Ana problemimiz olan tuzun su ile birleşmesiyle ortaya çıkan korozyon, üretimde kullandığımız birçok iş makinesinde ve ekipmanlarda ciddi arızalara ve hasara yol açıyor. Bu arızalar zaman zaman üretimimizi de etkiliyor. Liebherr tercih etme sebebimiz öncelikli olarak çok güvenilir bir marka olması, makinelerin kondisyonunun oldukça iyi olması, yedek parça ve servis ağının güçlü olması ama tabii ki en önemlisi ciddi anlamdaki düşük yakıt tüketimi. Satış sonrası hizmetlerinde bizlere çok etkin bir şekilde destek olan bilinçli ve çözüm odaklı personel ve hizmet altyapısına sahip bir firma. Teknolojiyi yakından takip eden, üretmiş olduğu ürünlerde kaliteye çok önem veren ve satış sonrası desteğini bizden hiçbir şekilde esirgemeyen çok güvenilir bir dünya markası olduğunu düşünüyoruz.
And all that so we can make our fish and chips taste nice. It is valued at around $1 trillion. It will measure only 200 meters wide, but it will stretch for 170 kilometers and accommodate more than 9 million people. It has been dismissed as overambitious, impossible to pull off, and a dystopian hellscape just waiting to happen. But despite all of that, and despite all the doubt and skepticism, work is now officially underway on the Saudi Arabian megacity that is known simply as the Line. Will the line ever make it across the finishing line? Who knows? But if it does, it will surely go down as one of the great wonders of the modern world. And even if it doesn't, it has the potential to keep an awful lot of men and machines busy for quite some time. If you'd like to know more about the line, there is an actual website dedicated entirely to it and its construction. I've just posted a link over in the chat. Go take a look.
Sorry to interrupt the guy with the funny glasses, but if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button as it helps our channel. Or, better still, share this video with a friend or a colleague. Thank you. Right, back to Beardy.
Right, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping like an achy gazelle over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Have a great day, and thanks for watching. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will see you on the other side of this for the Craic. Not good. Not good at all. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the chat. I'm planning to do this fairly quickly today because I do feel bloody rough. First off the line was Gary Muirhead. Morning, Gary. It looks like Gary's working this weekend. I'll come on to that in a second. But thank you very much indeed for being here, Gary, as you so often are. Really appreciate you being here. Mr. Drew is in the house as well. Morning, Mark. And morning, gang. Yeah, morning, gang from me as well. Jim Turner's here. And our friend Peter Ferguson, he's done away with chaps and chapettes and we've gone to lads and lasses this morning. Morning, Peter, thank you very much indeed for tuning in. Lots and lots in the chat, some of which is mine actually. Let's have a look. My question of the day for today was, what have you got planned for the weekend? Jim Turner has gates to hang, fencing to do and trees to plant, but I'd like to go digger shopping instead. If I tell you, last night I'll come back to the main part of this in a second. Last night I had to go and pick my wife up at about 5 o'clock. Got in the car and it felt a little bit cold. By the time I'd driven 20 minutes down the road, I was shivering, really seriously shivering. So cranked the heating up, put the heated seat on and everything else. Got back home and I was shivering so hard, it was like a spasm. It was, my entire body was going. So at 6 o'clock last night, I was tucked up in bed and I finally woke up just before 8 this morning. I don't know what ails me. Is it COVID? Possibly. I hope not. Managed to avoid it up until now, but you never know. Ken Hatcher is here as well. Morning, Ken. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Rattling through. Yeah, just while I am rattling through, just to some of you may recall back on, and I know it specifically, 12th of May last year. I did my show and literally walked out of this office and then felt ill, and it was my wedding anniversary, which is why I know it was which is why I know the date. And it's happened to me one time before, and we're going to come on to this in just a second because Steve Williamson is in the chat. I was coming back from Las Vegas, not last time, not the time before, but I think the time before that. I was feeling full of the joys of spring. Got on the plane and could not stop shivering. The air hostesses had to bring me 3 or 4 blankets, and I literally had them over my head to try and keep myself warm. Only lasts for a couple of hours, but man alive, it's rough while you're doing it. Now, I said that Steve Williamson is in the chat. He is, and as he says in just a second, I can't see it now. There we are. I hear we are meeting again. We are meeting again, Steve. Yeah. Obviously, our trip to Las Vegas is now fully booked. Flights are booked, hotels booked, and Steve will be over there with his partner in crime, Ed Butler, on the Kinsoffer stand, and we're going to be spending some time over there as well. Always a joy to go and catch up with Kinsoffer. Really great company to deal with. Look forward to meeting up with them whenever we possibly can. So yes, we will be there. We will, myself, my son Fred, Ed, and Steve, the 4 Musketeers, or something like that. But yeah, looking forward to catching up with you. Mick Norton's in the house. Morning, Mick. What did you make of all this talk of car parks collapsing through lack of maintenance? And just while we're on that subject, I didn't put this in the article, but there's this weird sort of double standard, isn't there? if you are a local authority councillor, or if you're a politician, a very, very good way to win yourself some votes is to start repairing potholes, because no one likes potholes, particularly those that are outside the front door. Car parks are kind of the opposite of that. If you decide to close, demolish, or close to refurbish a car park, all of the shopkeepers around will be up in arms, and all of the people that use that car park to go and do their shopping will also be up in arms. Is that why we're still venturing on with car parks that were built best part of 80 years ago and which are completely inadequate for modern vehicles? I would appreciate your input. Komatsu, exceedingly good. Is Mr. Kipling cake strapline? Yes, it is. That's exactly where I got it from. As you probably can tell, I have no qualms about plagiarism or just stealing bits. I went through a period back when I was on the magazine Contract Journal, way back in the late 80s. And it wasn't because I was lazy, although I was, but I would try desperately to see if I could get song titles in my headlines. And I got away with it quite a lot. And you had to get it past both an editor and a sub-editor, so you had to choose fairly obscure song titles, or they would have tweaked. But I got away with it quite a bit. So yes, Mr. Kipling strapline. I'm more than happy to help myself to that. As Ken Hatcher said, that's a nasty environment. Yeah, can you imagine? And I know Steve has actually said a little bit later on about do they have special paint on them. I'm not even sure special paint would help. I think salt has just got that nasty habit of just grinding anything off. Much the same as, I think Nick is probably still in the chat, you get down to English China Clays down in Cornwall, and you basically, the material that they are working there is effectively grinding paste, and it will destroy tyres, it will destroy steel, just eats its way through absolutely everything. So yeah, I would imagine the maintenance on those machines is pretty much a full-time job. Rust Central, yes, I should imagine it would be. Kenneth Hatcher says that's one salty place. You're dead right. And there we are. I wonder if those Liebherrs had a special paintwork for that environment. I'm not entirely sure how long that would last, but there we are. Mick Norton, Liebherr equipment mixed with oxygen and salty seawater must be a nightmare for Turkish preventive maintenance teams. Yeah, I would imagine that is pretty much a full-time job, and even then I'd be astounded if they managed to keep them going. Jim Turner, with the weight of electric cars, they should be barred from using multi-storey car parks and made to use out-of-town park and rides. And obviously on street. That way solar farms could be built with the parking spaces below. That way you'd get a better balance of electric vehicle and electric production as fossil fuel vehicle usage drops off. And eventually the multi-storey could be demolished and something else built instead, meaning less traffic in cities, green electric production and better use. All of which is absolutely valid. But when you look at the way in which electric vehicles, and perhaps even more specifically the way that electric excavators are sold, we are sold this dream that they are ideal for city centres because they are silent and because they don't emit any emissions. So we're now having to decide to put them out of town. Kind of defeats the object just a little bit. I don't know. I've said this before. I think I said this just after we came back after the New Year break. I do get the impression that there is a bit of a backlash on electric vehicles and electric machines. Don't get me wrong. I am not part of that tribe, but some of the most impressive machines I've operated over the past couple of years have been electric. The electric wheel loaders and mini excavators up with Volvo, the JCB electric telehandler, absolutely top notch. But as I say, there does seem to be a bit of a backlash, and I wonder if the backlash is entirely down to practicality or whether it is actually down to the fact that electric is now more expensive than diesel. I'm saying that, I haven't checked recently, but I know it certainly was. Ken Hatcher, it looks like his weekend will be down at the Royal Mint for a coffee on Saturday. What actually do you do at the Royal Mint, Ken? I know you're a regular down there. I know what a Royal Mint does, but I can't imagine why I would want to go there more than once or twice. You seem to be there a hell of a lot. Sound like you have a cooling system problem. Yeah, I think I probably do. It really was. My shivering was that bad last night. I was actually laying there thinking, can you phone for an ambulance for shivering? Because it felt more like a spasm than a shiver. But being the brave soldier that I am, I made it through, and I even turned up for today's show, even though I'm probably going to be back in bed in the not too distant future. Actually, salt doesn't affect the paint, it's the iron it attacks. It's something to do with electrolysis. Who knew? I thought electrolysis was the removal of hair from your top lip. Not mine, obviously, but I thought that's what that was. Mark, if your shivering symptoms persist, ring NHS at 111. Could be one of many things. Give them a ring. Mick, if it doesn't... Well, I'm not shivering at the moment, so I think I'm probably past the worst. But thank you for the advice, and thank you for taking care of me. Nothing is ideal apart from self-sufficiency, and we're well past that post. Yeah, absolutely. It does make you wonder, though. I do remember I was on the Contract Journal magazine, 87, 88, 89, and I left middle of 1990. So a couple of times I was invited along to the opening of sections of the M25 motorway, which immediately became chock-a-block, gridlocked. Partly, I think, because nobody had foreseen the notion of going onto the motorway and then coming off at the next junction. Like that had never been considered. But also because the entire project had been based upon traffic volumes of about 20 years prior to that. In fact, it may have even been 30 years prior to that. If you remember, I don't know what it was like where you were, but when I was growing up, families had, if they had anything, they had a car. They didn't have 2, 3, 4 cars parked on the drive. They had a car for the family. So to have built the M25 based on 1960s, 1970s traffic volumes, madness, and it looks like we've got exactly the same situation again with our car parks. And as I say, I honestly can't see a situation where any local authority or government department is likely to put their hand up and say we need to sort this out, because it's not a vote winner, it's potentially a vote loser. So what is the alternative? And unfortunately, if you watch Mike Keogh's presentation that we brought you about a year ago, his concern is we will actually have a catastrophic failure. There's been plenty of them around the world, in the US, in Australia, and various other places, where car parks have literally just collapsed under the weight of the vehicles. Does it require us to have one go here before we actually start to take it seriously? I hope that isn't the case, but I have a horrible feeling that might well be. Fingers crossed. Right, people, enough. That's about 31 minutes more than I thought I was going to manage today, so I'm going to love you and leave you. I'll be back bright-eyed, bushy-tailed on Monday, hopefully not shivering. Hopefully I'll be here, but hopefully not shivering. Have a great weekend, everyone. Good luck with the gate and the tree planting, Jim. I will be back on Monday. And don't forget, double whammy on Wednesday. We've got the morning show, and then we've got the 7 o'clock show as well. So if you fancy a bit of a chinwag about what is coming down the line, let me know. Everyone a gem. I hear the workers at the Royal Mint are going on strike to make less. Our resident cynic, thank you very much indeed for that, Nick. Right, people, go and have a good day. Go and have a good weekend as well. And I'll see you very soon. All the best.